Welcome to the Widowed Mom Podcast, episode 307. Why do I feel the need to control everything?
Welcome to the Widowed Mom Podcast, the only podcast that offers a proven process to help you work through your grief, to grow, evolve, and create a future you can truly look forward to. Here's your host, Master Certified Life Coach, Grief Expert, Widow, and Mom, Krista St-Germain.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the podcast. First of all, thank you so much for the warm reception to last week's podcast. I gave you a life update that was vulnerable and talked to you about my separation, and I knew everyone would be kind. I really did, but still it felt good to just be received with such gentleness and love and support, and especially all of my clients in my Mom Goes On program. Oh my gosh, so many nice messages. And so thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate that this is a space where we can be vulnerable and we can be honest. And yeah, just thank you for the way that you showed up for me. I love that and I appreciate it. Okay, a couple of other things. By the time you listen to this episode, Coaching on the Couch will be over, but I'm recording this before it happens and I'm super excited about it. It's always so, I want to say fun. It's fun, it's meaningful, it's sad, it's hopeful, it's all the things. And it's an event where a couple of times a year I have 10 or 11 women come to my house, all widows, women who've done Mom Goes On, and we spend a day coaching in my living room. And it is the best. It is the best for me as a coach because it's just like I'm in my element. I am with my people. And of course, I'm in my own house and it just feels really good to me. But it's really rewarding for me to watch other women connect with one another and feel seen and heard and be honest and ask for what they need. And it is amazing. Coaching is amazing. And I will say to you, I hope that you will give that to yourself. It may not be Coaching on the Couch. It may not be my program, but I hope that if you're listening to this podcast, you will find the opportunity to give yourself an experience like that, where you can be surrounded by other widows who understand, right? Where there can be so much that is unspoken just because you have this shared life experience and you can feel supported and loved and seen. And you can ask for support and receive support. It's transformational. And as an introvert, sometimes it's hard to ask for that. Sometimes it's hard to put ourselves in the spaces where we can receive that. And it's so worth it. So I just want to encourage you, if you've been thinking about doing something like that, again, whether it's with me or somebody else, if you've been thinking about putting yourself in a community where you could receive support like Mom Goes On, if there's a group that's local to you, that feels good to you, maybe scary, but would feel good to you, go, try it, let yourself see. I really want to encourage you to do that. In the meantime, as soon as I'm done with this episode, I've been doing a bunch of yard work. I have a massive yard. And now that it's just me, there's always a lot to do in this yard, but even more. So I have been filling up my 2 trash cans every week with leaves and trimmings and all the things. And yesterday I schlepped 30 bags of brown mulch from Home Depot in the minivan. I actually used ChatGPT to calculate how many bags of mulch I could fit in my particular minivan with the back row down. 30 was the answer. So I got 30 bags yesterday. Got them all out. I got 30 more bags this morning. So as soon as I'm done recording this podcast episode, I am going to go rake more leaves and move more mulch. It's a party over here. Okay. Let's talk about why we feel the need to control everything. I almost called this episode Power Without Control, because that's really what I want you to hear. I want you to know why we tend to do this, and I want you to know how to feel more powerful without controlling, because I think a lot of us are in this place, and I myself have been in this place, especially lately. So if you've been trying to control things, maybe you're trying to control your emotions, your kids, your future, how others see you. First of all, it makes perfect sense, especially in grief. Control can be conflated with safety. It can feel like safety. But what if the most powerful thing you can do right now isn't controlling anything at all? What if real power lives somewhere else entirely? That's what I want to talk about today. So, why we want to control. After a person dies, it really can feel like the whole world just shifted under your feet, like the rug was just ripped right out from under you. And when things feel unstable, our brain looks for something, anything to grab onto. And so we try to control. We plan, we manage, we monitor, we worry. It is not a flaw. It is not a character weakness. It's coping. It's a coping strategy. And what starts as a coping strategy can take over. And the truth is that trying to control what we can't control only makes grief harder, which is the very last thing I want for any of us. And I've been noticing this in myself lately, since my separation, especially, and especially as I was recording last week's podcast. And then I wrote a Slack message to my clients to tell them what was going on. I noticed that my brain really wanted to control the idea of how other people saw me, what they thought, especially you, my listeners, and those of you who are my clients. There's a part of me that was worried that someone will hear what happened and then they will think, see, this is why I shouldn't try to date again. This is why I shouldn't open myself up. Or see, if she's the one teaching this stuff on a podcast and this can happen to her, then why even bother, right? See, it's really not possible for me to love my life again because these kinds of things happen. That worry is mostly gone now, but it was very present. And so even though I really do know that what happened to me is not indicative of what will happen to anyone else, still, I notice my brain wanting to control it. I notice my brain wanting to protect other people from pain, to protect me from being misunderstood, to protect me from more pain. I notice it. The good news is that I noticed it. The good news is that I can see these patterns more clearly than probably at any point in my life. I can watch my desire to control. I can watch it come and go, ebbing and flowing, kind of like it's like waves on a beach almost. And this is really big because brains are going to brain, right? Thoughts are going to show up. That's just the way it goes. And so I want you to know that we don't need to control our desire to control to experience some relief from it. And I want to tell you what it's like for me so that you have a better chance of seeing similar patterns show up in your experience so you can know that A, you're not alone, and B, you can hold those patterns loosely instead of trying to control them more, which will make it easier for you to show up and support yourself when those patterns are there. All right? I really, really don't ever want anybody to think that you reach some magical place where you don't have a human brain anymore, because that's just not how it is. So I want to be honest with you about that. All right. Let's talk about the cost of trying to control what we can't control. I know you already know that there is a cost, or you probably wouldn't have been interested in the title of this podcast episode. But when we try to control things outside of us, other people's opinions, other people's grief, how fast we feel better, it doesn't feel good. We might think it's going to feel good, but it doesn't usually feel as good as we expected it to, hoped it would. And what we actually usually experience is instead of feeling better, we experience more tension, more anxiety, more disconnection from ourselves, disconnection from others. It can steal energy from the parts of life where we actually do have influence, right? If our brain is always in the present, worried about what other people are going to think or trying to play this chess game and figure out how it's all going to be and predict every move, then we can't be in the present moment. And that's where life is happening, is in the present moment. Another big one for me lately has been noticing how I want to control how my kids are doing, and even his kids too, really. It's quite sad, I think, especially for the youngest three, to to worry about it, to not be in the same house anymore. Now, of the four children, one was already grown and married, and he wasn't that close. But the youngest three they've been quite close. They love each other a lot. And some of this probably would have happened naturally anyway, because his youngest is away at college. My daughter's in another state for the semester. And so really it's just me and my youngest. So some of that would have naturally faded a little bit anyway, but the separation definitely changed the dynamic. And as I talked to each of them about it, that was their biggest worry too, losing the relationships with each other, specifically the three of them. And of course, it's heartbreaking to my mama heart, right? And I've noticed myself wishing that I could control their experience, that I could make it easier for them, that I can assure them that it's all going to be fine and they're going to stay close and there's nothing to worry about and it's okay. But I know that I can't do that. And I know that if I try to say things with the hopes of making them feel better so that I can feel better, that I'm really only doing that because part of me still believes that emotions are problems and that they need solving and that there is a wrong that needs to be righted. And if you've listened to the podcast for any amount of time, you know that that is contrary to what I teach, but I still have the urge. So instead, I keep bringing myself back to the reminder that these emotions, these challenges, they are supposed to be part of our human experience. Feelings are to be felt, not solved. And the last thing any of them need is me trying to make them feel better so I can feel better. But what I can do, and I keep reminding myself of this, is that I can be there to support them through their own individual experience, through their own process. I cannot control that they feel pain. I cannot take that pain away from them. It is not mine to do, or yours, by the way. But I do get to decide and control how I show up to support them. That's my part of it. And I know that you don't like to have your pain minimized. Nobody does, right? So the cost of not knowing this, of trying to control what we can't control, is that sometimes it makes the relationships that we value even less of what we want, right? It creates distance when what we want is closeness, because we're trying to control someone's experience of us or someone's experience of an emotion, which isn't well received and then creates distance. So there's a real cost in trying to control. It's also such an energy suck. Think about how much energy you might spend just even in one issue in your life that you're trying to control, something that isn't yours to control. Think about how much mental bandwidth that takes you. Think about how much just brain space it occupies and what you could actually do if you had that energy back. There's a cost. There's also value in surrender. And what I mean by that is acknowledging that what isn't yours to carry isn't yours to carry. Surrender does not mean giving up. I'm not talking about resignation. It doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means knowing what's yours and what's not. And laying down that very heavy backpack of control, even if your brain seems to think that it's important to hold on to it. It means trading the illusion of control for the peace of presence. That's what I want for you. My youngest came up with a metaphor. Is it metaphor or analogy? I never remember. Anyway, we'll go with metaphor. That he told me about it a couple of weeks ago, it's been something he's been working on in his own personal life. But essentially he said to me, what I have noticed is that it's like I've got, my hands cupped in front of me and I've got sand in them. And I'm trying to hold on to as much sand as possible. I'm trying to preserve as much sand in my cupped hands as I can. And what I've noticed is that when I tighten down on the sand and I try to hold it, that's when the sand falls away. That's when I can hold less sand. And so the trick to holding as much sand as possible is to not close my hands, essentially, to not control, right? To let go. This one is the emotional maturity sometimes. It just kind of blows me away a little bit. But what a beautiful metaphor, right? When we're trying to control, it's like we're squeezing our hands full of sand, and all the sand then falls out of our hands instead of just holding it loosely and lightly. So kudos to my youngest for that one. Okay, so if power isn't control, then what is it? I propose power is knowing the difference between what you can control and what you can't. And maybe you've heard that before, right? We've all heard this before. The serenity prayer, right? We know this. Whether you're religious or not, we've all heard it. It's choosing to stay aligned with your values, even when everything else feels uncertain or shaky, right? When you can't control the other things, you can always come back to what you value and make choices that keep you in alignment with those values. That is power. This is the heart of one of my favorite formulas, which I have talked about on the podcast before. It's also another way of explaining the model that I teach in my coaching. It's called E plus R equals O. So if you remember, if you've ever listened to Jack Canfield or read any of his books, Jack Canfield wrote or co-authored, I think, all the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And he wrote a book called The Success Principles. I think probably The Success Principles was the first time I heard him talk about E plus R equals O. And in his teaching, he credits Dr. Robert Resnick, who was a behavioral psychologist. So Canfield didn't actually come up with E plus R equals O, but he definitely made it popular. So event plus response equals outcome. Event plus response equals outcome. E plus R equals O. This is a formula that is, use this. We can't change the event. The event happened. The event is always in the past. The event is never within our ability to control because it's over. So something happens. That's the event. And then what creates the outcome is not just the event, but the event plus how we respond to it. Which means while we can't control the event, we can always control our response, and therefore we get to influence the outcome. And that's where our power is. So your person died. That's done. That was an event. Can't control it. It's over. It happened. It was never yours to control, by the way. But we do get to choose our response to it. Who do you want to be in the face of this? Maybe somebody has an opinion about the way you're living or the way you're parenting. It's done, right? It's happened. Can't control it. It's over. It is what it is. But you can choose your response to it. Who do you want to be? What do you want to think? How do you want to show up? Maybe you weren't invited to go with your couple friends on the last cruise. That's over. Out of your control. How do you want to think about it? Who do you want to be in the face of that? Focusing on our response is what makes us powerful without needing to control what isn't ours to control. If we're focusing on the event, we're spinning our wheels because the event is over and done. If we're telling ourselves the event shouldn't have happened, it did. Viktor Frankl, my favorite quote, I know you've probably heard me say it, but it bears repeating, which is, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And that space, the space between what happens and how we choose to respond, not necessarily our initial reaction, but how we choose to respond, is where our freedom is. It is where our power is. Doesn't mean we're going to feel confident all the time. Doesn't mean we're not going to feel overwhelmed or uncertain. Doesn't mean we're not going to feel sad or disappointed or angry. But it does mean that we stop wasting so much energy on things we were never meant to control. It means we can show up with more peace, more presence, more grounded strength. And I don't want you to think about it as though like it's a one and done magical moment where everything clicks and you're never the same, right? It's not like that. It's a habit. It's a daily practice of asking, what is mine to carry today? What isn't? What can I control today? What is beyond my control today? How can I spend my energy in ways that will move me toward what I want, instead of wasting my energy on things that move me away from what I want or on things that aren't mine? And sometimes it's not just a daily practice. Sometimes it's something we need to be asking ourselves about this morning or this hour or this minute. And sometimes it will be something that we won't ask ourselves until we've noticed we have spent a whole lot of time arguing with the event. And that's okay too. That's okay too. We can always come back and remind ourselves, okay, what is mine to control here? What is mine to let go of? So I want to give you something simple you can try this week. When you're ready, take out a piece of paper and just draw a line down the middle and label one column what I can control and label the other column what I can't. And then think of something that's bothering you, anything. Maybe it's your relationship with one of your kids. Maybe it's something going on financially with one of your friends. Maybe it's the political state of the world, anything. Don't worry about it. Just pick one thing. And then start listing. What can I control about this? What can't I control about this? Then pick one thing in the can't control column. And just imagine loosening your grip on that one thing. Just a little. Maybe you can use the metaphor of holding sand. Ask yourself, if I stopped trying to control this, if I stopped gripping that sand so hard, what would that free me up to feel? What would that free me up to do? Who would that free me up to be? What would I have more space for? What if I held this like sand in the palms of my hands? And maybe you'd have more rest, more peace, more connection, maybe more patience with yourself. That's power, more presence. Or, and this is a cautionary tale, maybe you notice that trying to control has been a distraction from feeling something you don't want to feel. And that's okay too. Maybe letting go of control will mean that you'll have to accept, or at least see, that something sucks and you don't like it and you have some feelings about that you don't particularly want to have. And I want to tell you that that's power too. Because knowing the truth about yourself and your experience is powerful. Knowing the truth about what is there for us, what is alive in us, is powerful. And that's what allows us to figure out what kind of support we need next, right? If all we're ever doing is controlling so we don't have to feel, we don't ever figure out how to support ourselves. We don't ever figure out how to feel it so it can flow through. It just builds up and builds up and builds up. And we know that's not healthy. So you don't need to control everything to be okay. You literally can't. But it makes sense why, when life has felt out of control, that we would double down and want to control as much as possible. So remind yourself that your power is not in your ability to control everything. It's in the way you take action when you recognize what you can't control. It's in the way you come back to what you value so that you can show up as more of who you want to be. It's in your presence with yourself, even when it's hard, even when there's something you don't want to feel. It's in how you talk to yourself when life does not go the way you planned or the way you wanted. That is power. So I will leave you with a question. What's one thing you've been holding tightly that would feel good to set down today, even just for a moment? Okay. Remember, if you're trying to control, you are not alone. There is nothing wrong with you. It is just a coping strategy, but you know when it's time to let go. You know where the opportunities are. You can trust yourself to know that. All right. That's what I have for you this week. Remember, I love you. You've got this. Take care, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. If you like what you've been hearing on this podcast and want to create a future you can truly get excited about even after the loss of your spouse, I invite you to join my Mom Goes On coaching program. It's small group coaching just for widowed moms like you, where I'll help you figure out what's holding you back and give you the tools and support you need so you can move forward with confidence. Please don't settle for a new normal that's less than what you deserve. Go to coachingwithkrista.com and click Work With Me for details and next steps. I can't wait to meet you.